lounging, son.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Comic Lounge. My name's Ryan, and today I'm going to be going through the first story in Oni Double Feature number 1. Now, this is when Oni did a double feature, which also has a flip book, but for this particular episode, I am just going to be talking about, you guessed it, Jay and Silent Bob. Now, this is the first comic book appearance of Jay and Silent Bob, written by none other than the man himself, Kevin Smith. Now, I have been a Kevin Smith fan for years, man. I mean, the minute I discovered his work, I fell in love with it. I discovered his work from Daredevil. And that was in middle school. So after I discovered it, I immediately went and checked out his movies, and I made sure to watch them in the order that they came out. So I picked up Clerks, loved it. Then, we got Mallrats, Chasing Amy, Dogma, Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. So it was around the time that I guess it would be like around the time Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back came out that I discovered his work. And I love it. Everything he's done, I've been a fan of, including Clerks 2, including some of his weirder shit that he did, Tusk, Red State. I mean, if Kevin Smith has his name on it, I'm going to check it out. And his comic books are not excluded from that list. His Daredevil, Guardian Devil, one of my favorites. Green Arrow by Kevin Smith, also one of my absolute favorite stories of all time. And if I'm a fan of the movies, you bet your ass I'm going to be fucking reading these comics as well. I have the collection in trade that I actually bought from his West Coast secret stash when that was still a thing. And I actually got to meet him there. I met him a couple more times. That's besides the point. But I really wanted to get the actual single issues. For me, I like having, them in their original format as well as having the collection, especially if it's something that I really like. I can't even imagine anybody else but Kevin Smith writing these characters, so obviously it was a no-brainer that he was going to write this book. As we see, it talks about Walt Flanagan's dog. Mentioned often in his original trilogy. Pretty sure they mentioned it in Clerks. No, they mentioned it in Mallrats as well. Walt Flanagan is a real person. It's actually one of Kevin Smith's friends that he's known since childhood and on Comic Book Men, right? But he's also integrated him into his films. But anyways, this story is written by Kevin Smith, illustrated by Matt Wagner. Dude, Matt Wagner of Mage, of Grendel fame. Okay, so huge talent in the comic book industry, and I love his depiction of these Kevin Smith characters, dude. Right off the bat, Silent Bob is going in the quick stop, and we see Dante on the phone he's even mentioning to his girlfriend about watching a cable access game show at a mall. And I just think it's hilarious that he kind of integrated that into this, because this book came out in '98, so this is after Chasing Amy came out, but nice to have a little callback to Mallrats and get a fucking splash page of Jay holding up his fucking blunt. And I mean, what's great too is that these characters are so permeated in my mind, and I'm sure anybody else that's a fan of Jay and Silent Bob, that you read this comic and you're hearing Jason Mewes. You're hearing his voice in your head. Because, I mean, you're essentially reading what could have just been dialogue from the film. I mean, Kevin Smith, it's not like he's writing any different than anything you would hear or see in the movie. And I like this. We even get still, like, just from, like, in Mallrats, where Silent Bob is trying to move the cigarette with his Jedi Force powers. Another famous quote, It's just a cool little, like, story focused on Jay and Silent Bob. And we finally meet the dog that had been mentioned in his movies. We meet Walt Flanagan's dog. But what's funnier about this story is not what the dog does or what happens with the dog. It's with Steve Dave, which is played by Brian Johnson in the films, another one of Kevin Smith's friends, and then we got Walt Flanagan, and even and they run the comic book store that we see in Mallrats. And I like that in here he says, "Who edited Matt Wagner's Mage at Kamiko?" And we see that Walt Flanagan says Bob Schreck, obviously wrong, it was Diana Schutz. And they're playing strip comic trivia It's fucking. It's just such a ridiculous scene. Perfect for a Kevin Smith story, though. Walt's thinking that it makes him gay, and Steve Dave says, "No way, dude. We're just practicing for when we get that club footage from the gift shop to play the game with us." And Walt's dog keeps fucking barking, won't shut up at Jay and Silent Bob, who were fucking sitting there just smoking a blunt. And what do? They get into it with Steve Dave and Walt. And what else is there to do to get that dog to shut up and then smoke out the dog? They smoke him out. Dog gets baked. Fucking has a fucking huge boner. They fucking hit it with a stick, and on comes the fucking psychotic dog chasing him down the street before finally they get him back into his house and lock the gate. And this was such a cool little fucking, and it's only a 15-page story. Short story, Jay and Silent Bob. I mean, there's really not much else. Bunch of dick jokes. This was their first comic book appearance. I believe this is the third printing. I don't know how many printings it did. I think it might have gone up to 4 or 5. But, for me, it's not about what printing it was. I just wanted to get it in its entirety of the single issue format. I mean, Kevin Smith, Matt Wagner doing a Jay and Silent Bob comic. What more could you really ask for? Plus, I mean, who knows? This could have also, just like Daredevil was my entrance into Kevin Smith work, this very well could have been the way people learned about Kevin Smith's films, Kevin Smith's work, and, this is done in 1998. So this is right around the time that he's about to do Daredevil, or maybe he's writing it at the same time. I think I would have loved to see more comics by Kevin Smith, but, I mean, the ones he has done are absolutely phenomenal. This is perfect book for anybody that's a fan of Jay and Silent Bob or anything by Kevin Smith. And flip this real quick because we have an ad for the Clerks comic book. 1-issue comic book illustrated by the great Jim Mahfood, cover by Gilbert Hernandez of Los Bros Hernandez. I'll be doing an episode on that. I'm going to do way more Jay and Silent Bob coverage. Probably going to hit that Oni Double Feature number 12 with Blunt Man and Chronic. So be on the lookout for that. If you're not already following us, make sure you follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at The Comic Lounge. Throw your comments or suggestions down below, or email us at thecomicloungepod@gmail.com. Make sure you hit the subscribe button so you're notified every time we put up a new episode. We are available on YouTube, Podbean, Spotify, iTunes. And make sure you hit the bell icon so you're notified every time a new ep goes up. And on that note, I'm out.